Welcome everybody to the Captain Spot. I'm your host Justin Freeman, 6 foot 1 inches, 275 pounds of fantasy knowledge. It's week 14, it's Thursday night. If it's week 14 and you're still listening to fantasy content, you might be in the playoffs in your season-long leagues, or you might just be wanting to grind a little showdown here with me. Come grind with me, guys. Things I didn't think I'd say on air. Hop on in, the water's warm. We're talking Rams, Patriots. This should be a fun one. Before we hop into the slate too deeply, quick reminder, like, rate, review, subscribe to the show wherever you are getting it. It's YouTube, it's Apple Podcasts, wherever you're getting podcasts. You can't miss it. Just click the subscribe button, give a thumbs up, leave a rating, whatever you can do to help the show. Would really, really, really appreciate it. And once you finish, why don't we hop right into this slate where we are talking about Patriots at Rams. This game's in LA. And as of right now, we're looking at a 44.5 point total. Rams favored at home by 5. And this Rams team is kind of a tough nut to crack. They're sitting at 8-4 right now, right on top of the NFC West. They're kind of driver's seat. They're tied with the Seattle Seahawks, who are also at 8-4. Cardinals hot on their heels, 6-6. There's a lot of different ways that NFC West can shake out. Hopefully getting at least 2 playoff teams out of that division. But on the other side, Patriots 6-6 still got a chance to make a run if they play their cards right. So we got a couple teams with strong incentives to play well. Vegas thinks the Rams are favored here. Before we get too deep, let's hop into the injury report. Make sure we understand who's playing, who's not playing. Only one guy of fantasy concern on the injury report for the Rams. That's kicker Matt Gay, listed as questionable. Based on his practice report, it seems like the odds of him not playing are pretty low. So we're banking on seeing Matt Gay as the starting kicker for the Rams. On the Patriots, it's the Bill Belichick injury report special, guys. Every single player on the injury report is listed as limited 3 days in a row. Every single player on the injury report is listed as questionable. It's a bending of the rules, so to speak. Belichick specializes in those, but so ultimately we get very little clarity as to who's actually likely to suit up and play. Likely there's nothing for us to worry about. The players on this list are kicker Nick Folk, questionable. Everybody here is questionable. Looks like he'll play. Ryan Izzo, questionable, tight end. Jacob Johnson, the fullback. Cam Newton, the quarterback. Obviously, I think we're not worried about Cam not suiting up here. Should be good to go. Matthew Slater, special teams ace. J.J. Taylor, 4th string running back. So overall, we're not terribly concerned about that. As always, standard disclaimer. Check the inactives 90 minutes before lock. Even if, one of these guys, if everybody on this list plays, somebody's coming off the field. So overall, we got to sort of morph our target expectations, rush attempt expectations, according to what we're seeing there in the inactives report. So, without further ado, 44.5 point total. That's a little on the low side. So Vegas thinks it's going to be a pretty legit, tough defensive matchup. We're talking about a shutout last week for the New England Patriots against the LA Chargers. Just came out and played lights out, made Justin Herbert look like the rookie that he is, and something to build on there for New England, especially as they're trying to make a late season playoff push. Now, the defense on LA side of football is tremendous. They have super talented defensive front. Begins and ends with Aaron Donald, honestly. And that secondary is probably the best secondary in football right this second. Going to be a tough sledding for Cam Newton to be able to throw the ball effectively against this Rams secondary. I have far more confidence in their ability to run the football. So what happens in this game, Rams favored by 5, what happens in a situation where New England is playing catch-up? And not only playing catch-up, but playing catch-up against possibly the league's best pass defense. That's the question for us to solve today. So overall, I think it's best for us to sort of dip into the usage, get an understanding of price points of these guys, and what we can expect here in this game. Obviously, the quarterbacks, you know who they are. Jared Goff, 11K. Cam Newton, 10.6. To throw each one of those guys in your lineup, I think overall, Cam Newton's going to give you the rushing ability even in games where he doesn't give you the passing ability. So, and I think he's going to have to rely on that. This is going to have to be a heavy-duty Damian Harris, Cam Newton rush fest because, while Jacoby Myers is soaking up targets, his ability to get open against this secondary might not be as successful as what we've seen in previous matchups. So overall, just trying to bring down expectations a little bit for that passing offense in New England. I mean, it's already pretty low overall. They're not a high volume offense, and they haven't been the most effective. But their ground game has been very effective. The question is, can the game remain competitive enough, long enough for Cam Newton and that rush offense to stay the preferred mode of attack? So once we move beyond the quarterbacks, I mean, you know what to expect. Jared Goff and Cam Newton at this point. It's week 14. You know who they are. You know how they accumulate their fantasy points. But, let's look at the running back situations for each of these teams, where the lead dog for New England is going to be Damian Harris, priced at $8,800. Now, what do you think about Damian Harris here? He is a guy who, if the Patriots have their way, will have 20 rush attempts. No doubt about it. Question is, how likely is that to be able to happen? And on top of that, another concern for Damian Harris is, does he have touchdown upside? We've seen Cam Newton be the start point and the end point in how this team scores rushing touchdowns. In fact, 2 weeks ago, James White had a pair of rushing scores, left Cam and Damian Harris on the outside looking in. So overall, a scary low floor for Damian Harris, but we're not playing Showdown with floor concerns, not as a primary mode of attack there. So I think Damian Harris could have some captain appeal under the right game script. However, just keep in mind that that's a super wide range of outcomes for a player who may not have the ability to get there on touchdowns alone. Could get the 100-yard bonus and not even hit a touchdown. So, kind of a capped ceiling there, but if in the event that he has, the touchdowns just so happen to fall his way, maybe they come on longer runs, maybe, he converts at the goal line, then that's the picture where Harris could be a captain. Now let's look at the other options in the New England backfield. It's basically James White and Sony Michel at this point. James White, $6,400, Sony Michel, $4,800. James White did not log a rush attempt last week. That's a super scary floor. Now, he got 19% of the team's targets, and I think that's about what you can expect from him moving forward. Problem is, 19% of what? What is that baseline number that we can expect for James White moving forward? How many targets could James White get? Now, I'd say the opposite reason that you would like a Damian Harris lineup would be the reason that you might like a James White lineup as the captain, that is. And that is a negative game script situation, a situation where the Patriots, who would love to just be able to throw the ball 25 times in a game, might now have to throw the ball 45 times in a game. And in that situation, guess who's going to be the running back out there catching those passes? It's going to be James White, no doubt about it. And so, we saw like J.D. McKissick last week come in, early in the game. Now, that was for injury purposes, but could essentially work the same way here. Come in early in the game and just soak up 10 targets. Like, that's within James White's range of outcomes for sure. Now, Sony Michel, on the other hand, I just don't think you can play him. He came in last week, got a little bit of mop-up duty. The game got out of control, obviously. Now, he could, just sort of work into the workload of Damian Harris. That could be a pain in the neck. But overall, just more of a nuisance than anything else. Not interested in Sony Michel at that price point. Running backs on the other side of the football. Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers. Now, Cam Akers is the highest priced guy in this backfield. And this is coming off a week where he saw 68% of the team's rush attempts, highest number of the year by a long shot. So, looks like the team wants to ride Cam Akers. Now, Darrell Henderson was a little bit banged up in the middle of that game last week, so I'm not sure if Cam Akers got all those touches out of design or whether, it's just simply a matter of fact that Henderson was sidelined for a portion of that game and they just rode with Akers. So overall, I'm not completely sold that Akers is just the bona fide lead back and Henderson is, relegated to backup duties. It could be a little bit closer than people think. In that situation, $8K for Akers, $7,400 for Henderson. Could be some leverage opportunity there for Darrell Henderson, $7,400. Malcolm Brown on the other side, $2,400. Only got 10% of the carries last week, 11% the week before that, 15% the week before that. That's not good enough, even at a price point of $2,400. What you hope from Malcolm Brown, is that he would be the one out there running routes. And so far, that has at least been something that you could rely on him to do. 33, 31, 43, 19% of the routes run in that offense. So Cam Akers led the way last week, 52% of the routes run. But if you're just trying to be differentiated and dark horse candidate there for Malcolm Brown, that would be the avenue. Maybe similar reason you'd play James White on the other side is a reason that you'd play Malcolm Brown on this side, but it's a long way from being that cut and dry. I think Akers certainly is the best option of these. You're playing Henderson for leverage reasons. Now, let's take a look at the pass catching options here. We're on this Rams side of the football. It's really watered down. You got, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods clear 1 and 2 in this offense. Now, there's a little bit of, jostling around the depth chart going on right now for LA. Cooper Kupp came off the field quite a bit last week. Did not run a route all the time. He's not a full-time player last week. Played 65% of the snaps, ran a route on 69% of Jared Goff's dropbacks. That's a little bit discouraging from a guy who's averaged 88% over the course of the year. Robert Woods has stayed out there the whole time, ran 81% of the routes last week. Josh Reynolds and Van Jefferson appear to have a little bit of a contest brewing for wide receiver 3 duties. Josh Reynolds had kind of run away throughout the course of this year, but the two played almost identical number of snaps last week. Van Jefferson ran 32% of the team's routes compared to 44% for Josh Reynolds. So that could just be a game plan thing. Not entirely sure what might be happening there. People are going to be ready to hop on Van Jefferson as a result. So overall, I'm interested to see where the ownership is going to come in on those two guys. I think both of them very much in play. I would kind of hedge a little bit on the Reynolds projection this week, give a little bit more to Van Jefferson, but still projecting Reynolds ahead of Jefferson, at least for right now. What I'm kind of interested is the tight end position, where they have been rolling with Gerald Everett and Tyler Higbee on the field these last couple of weeks. Specifically last week, both these guys had 67 and 69% of the routes run in this offense. And I tweeted this out last night, that routes run are a tremendous predictor of target volume. It's really just, like a 0.97 R squared over the course of a large sample size. If you're out there running routes, you're going to get targets. So overall, I think we can expect a lot from Higbee and Everett in this game. In fact, those would be the ways that I would differentiate. I don't think you'll get a lot of Higbee and Everett in the same lineup type of combinations, but it's $5K for Everett, $5K for Higbee, $3,400 for Everett, and I think you can throw them in the same lineup. I think each of them probably has more upside than Reynolds or Van Jefferson. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it. On the New England side of the football, the wide receiver depth chart is pretty clear right this second, at least at the top. It's Jacoby Myers and it's Damiere Byrd. They're both out there all the time. And then it's N'Keal Harry after that. And we're getting a little bit more Dante Moncrief inserted in this offense. Moncrief, only played 2% of the snaps 2 weeks ago, 22% last week. So that could just be a function of the blowout, or overall it could be that he's starting to eat into N'Keal Harry's role. Overall, we want to be aware of that. Nobody wants to play N'Keal Harry. He'll be $1,800. Dante Moncrief, $600. You can certainly play either of those two guys. Just know that the floor is literally zero for Dante Moncrief. You're doing it for differentiation reasons. At $600, that's just barely over stone minimum. So I like that in the situation. Now, on the tight end position for New England, Ryan Izzo, $1,400. He'll be your starting tight end. The team also got Dalton Keene back last week. $200, came in and played 34% of the team snaps. They should also get Jordan Thomas back in this game should he suit up. So overall, those should be the three tight ends active for this team. It won't cost you a lot if you're just trying to throw a dart, but overall, we know sort of how the touchdowns tend to go in this offense once they get into the red zone. Like, the reason we play $200 tight ends sometimes is because it might be all it takes, to pay off and be into the optimal lineup, right? You play $200 Jordan Thomas because if he catches one ball and it's a 8-yard touchdown, there's 7.8 fantasy points, and maybe that lets you get the rest of the optimal into the lineup. Now, that's helpful a lot of times, except for it's not extremely likely in New England's particular case, because we know when they're inside the 8-yard line, there aren't a ton of those touchdowns to go around in the passing game. They are looking to pound the rock, and they're largely looking to do it on the back of Cam Newton. That's why he's going to have such an extremely high touchdown expectation every week. It's such a large proportion of what the Patriots are doing. So overall, that covers the passing game, covers the rushing game. I think we've got all the information we need to know. Let's take a look at the simulations, see how they look this week, starting with the captain assignments, where Cam Newton leads the way as top captain. We see quarterbacks actually at top 2 positions here. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's not a ton of strong volume to go around. Like Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods really just eat into each other's share. And so if they were one player, they'd obviously grade out as the best captain. But here, they're 2. So they pull away, let Jared Goff emerge as the top captain because he can pay off both these guys and still be the captain himself. And let's keep in mind, this is still super close edges. All these guys favored over 10% of the time. Now, there's a big drop-off after and Jacoby Myers is right there too. So it's Cam Newton, Jared Goff, Jacoby Myers, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. And Jacoby Myers has a stranglehold over the targets in this offense. So you kind of see where it goes. I mean, it's tough for some of those running backs to get there when we expect a lot of this volume to go through the passing game over on the LA side and then through Cam Newton as a form of the rushing game on the New England side. Let's take a look at the flex appearances where, of course, it's top 2 quarterbacks emerging. Jared Goff, Cam Newton, your top 2 flex options. Then Jacoby Myers. So it's interesting to see Jacoby Myers having a high enough floor to be able to pay off so frequently as a flex option. Now, Jacoby Myers is priced at $6,800. So he's not too expensive, honestly, given the amount of target volume that he's been getting. We're going to probably project him for north of 25%, maybe closer to 30% of the team's targets. Just super strong, elite number. Problem is New England doesn't pass the ball a ton. Now, after Myers is Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Damian Byrd. So Damian Byrd, great opportunity to play a guy for $800. Now, he may not consistently, I guess I should say, flash the ceiling that you need for captain allocations, but $800, my goodness, just completely mispriced is Damian Byrd on the slate. Gotta play. I mean, gosh, I hate to say gotta play him. You see how often you gotta play him. You gotta play him about, about 30% of the time, like 31% if I'm doing my visual gauging right there for Damian Byrd, which, I think maybe you need to compare that to ownership. Take a look at ownership projections around the industry. See how often everybody else is playing Damian Byrd. That should be an indicator for you. If he's going to be like 80% owned, just know that there's still like a 70% bust rate for Damian Byrd, even at that price. It's weird how combinations play together. Just keep that in mind, that even though Damian Byrd could have a perfectly fine 4 for 40 type of day, and you would love that out of an $800 guy, it still might not be the right combination. So lots of things to consider there. After Damian Byrd, it's Damian Harris, followed by James White. You see the differential there. Then Cam Akers. So they're all kind of clumped right there together, those top 3 running backs for each of those teams. Josh Reynolds, Tyler Higbee, Matt Gay, Gerald Everett, N'Keal Harry. And then we're down to the backup running backs, kickers, defenses, that sort of thing. So overall, it's a really interesting slate. I think we probably have an edge here, understanding the pricing inefficiency around Damian Byrd. If we think the industry is going to be low on him, we want to be high. But if they're going to be overly high and aware of that pricing inconsistency, we want to be low on him. We understand what that bust rate is going to be, and we want to plan accordingly. So overall, it looks like a good week to be heavy on these quarterbacks. Just keep in mind, this isn't a super high total. In lower total games, weird things happen, right? Where a touchdown to an unknown player can swing the slate. In a high-scoring game, that can usually not be so impactful. Low-scoring game, that makes up such a big proportion of the fantasy points scored. It's very important. So that's going to do it for us this week, Thursday night show. Tune back in on Sunday. We'll hit you a little Sunday night football, a little Monday night action over on Maya Media Network later this week. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Hope you have a good Thursday night action. Hope you run hot. See you guys here Sunday night.